Harsha, thank you so much for joining us in this next edition of the Fire Up Startup Founder series. We are trying to extract some interesting best practices that various startups have had some good traction and success with. And in your case, Uton Energy, you have been kind of building a subsystem, and then your challenge has been like, okay, should you go with the subsystem and the OEM market, or should you go with a complete solution? Like in this case, a full electric vehicle. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. What are the consideration and how do you decide between one or the other, right? I mean, OEM market, you can sell your subsystem to multiple vehicle manufacturers, or if you go with a full vehicle, then it's your own branded product. And both cannot happen, right? One happens at the expense of the other. So you have to really pick which way to go. So that's what we're going to be discussing. So Harsha, thank you for joining us. And before we kind of get into the topic, can you give a quick, narrate your journey as an entrepreneur? How do you think of Uton Energy and like what's happened since in the last couple of years?
Definitely. Thanks, Ramesh and CIE for giving me this opportunity to interact with you guys. So basically, Uton Energia, we are focusing on tackling the major problem of the urban mobility, like predominantly the first and the last mile connectivities. So we started off like back in 2019. So as a developing electric two-wheelers for the short commutes especially. So initially, so we have developed like the complete vehicle and ecosystem around it, like the charging station, swappable charging stations and all. So that's a whole product that we have started with. It took us like close to 8 to 10 months to completely develop the product and gain the first set of users. So that's a journey so far. We've gone to good amount of traction so far. Looking forward to get more of it and so that's it.
So what was your subsystem? I mean, like, okay, let's come to the dilemma now. So can you just quickly describe your subsystem that you were developing, the technology?
Yes. So to go with the subsystem, so what we have built is a complete drive system of an electric two-wheeler, to be specific. So right from the battery, the motor, and the drive system that connects the motor and the tires, to be specific. So we have built a efficient drive system, especially that actually the efficiency, if you are looking at the typical existing drive system, just close to 75 to 80%. What we have built has gone to close to 92%. So that's the drive system that we have developed. So that is more of like complete electric two-wheelers. It can go into any existing electric two-wheelers. So that's the thing that we have actually built.
So if you had gone the OEM route, who would have been your ideal customers if you had gone the OEM route?
Yeah, so basically every electric two-wheeler manufacturers, especially like be it or Bajaj, who are recently gone with the Chetak model. Then Hero has many pretty good electric two-wheeler concepts themselves. So yeah, so these are the kind of OEMs that we were looking at initially. So yeah, so that was the market that we were planning for the subsystem that we have developed. So,
but how? See, all of them would be having some form of powertrain already. So how would you have communicated value to them that they should consider your powertrain?
Yeah, so basically, if you're talking about the major challenges, like with the electric two-wheelers, the major challenge with is like there's a lot compared to what typical fuel systems that we have. The energy that is being delivered from the battery is quite low when compared to the typical fuel systems. So here, the lot of amount of lot battery pack is needed when you're actually trying to get onto gradabilities like inclinations and all. So that's where we thought that efficiency has to be a key factor, and that was the same conveyed to the OEMs and all. So especially given that they were going with the typical chain drives that you typically see with the existing fuel systems, or so that was a major thing. The efficiency and the overall life cycle of the system is actually promised to them in the initial phase.
So have you tried that? I mean, like, you considered both the OEM route and also a complete electric vehicle route, building your own two-wheelers. So, yes. So when you went the OEM route, what was the kind of the experience in the market?
Yeah, so that was initially going typically was to go with an just a subsystem sale, not to build the electric vehicle. So that was the initial concept first. So as I told, so when we have gone to typical OEMs, such OEMs, so that the major challenge there was the first thing, there was no standard, there was no proper standardization. If you're talking at different segments of the vehicle, like there is a battery and electric, the complete drive system. So in India, if you could see, the electric vehicle market is slowly gaining good traction. But the major challenge here is there is no proper standard of battery that everyone in the country are using. So typically, it depends on, like, when you're going with a typical lead acid battery which has been already there in the system, been an easier solution for us. But lithium-ion batteries, itself has like close to 8 to 10 different chemistries. So what that made us difficult to really go and fit into their system. That was a major challenge that was happening when we are approaching these OEMs. So each one were using a different kind of battery system, which didn't really suit the whole system that we were actually trying to develop. So that was the overall thing when we have approached these OEMs.
But that is something, didn't you consider adapting? Meaning, was your technology necessarily requiring a very specific type of battery?
Yes, so that was like we were considering very generic lithium-ion batteries. So that is a very generic chemistry that we were using. Now consider, like, if you have to take two considerations, like first with Hero or Bajaj. Hero so far developed low-speed electric two-wheelers for which lithium iron phosphate (LiFePO4) kind of batteries were more suitable because the life cycles have been very much high for that kind of chemistry. But when you're talking about Bajaj has developed with Chetak, it is a generic. It's a lithium polymer batteries that they were using for the development of the drive system and the power system. So that's how the difference has really come. So the integration with the existing systems has been a real difficultness, especially when you're considering there is no proper standardization of the system.
So how did you? I mean, like, was that the only issue with OEM, or were there some other acceptability issues as well? Meaning they were not too keen to consider.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a good point too. So basically, if you're looking at typically the manufacturing of it, so there are certain standards that really needs to basically if any vehicle that needs to hit on the road. There are certain standards from ARI, ICAT to be clear. So what we were typically doing is not much of manufacturing was happening in India, and especially the motors or the drive system that we've built. So we had to get this manufactured over across, like, probably in China, especially that we were doing it earlier. So that was the major concern actually. So they were really worried about the reliability and all. So that is one major issue. And they typically have their own. I mean, it's very hard to replace because the same drive system has been going in to the whole Hero vehicles prior to what we were developing. I mean, we have seen Hero developing so good models before. So that was the 2-3 issues. Like one with the reliability that they were really worried about because of the manufacturing that's not happening here. Second thing would be like they have a prior drive system that actually that goes in well with the battery that they have developed. So such issues were actually raised upon from the Hero, especially which we have approached, especially with the Hero. So, and we have gone to typical startups again. Not when we tried going with the OEMs, which were not happening. Then we have gone to typical startups for incorporating this drive system into their models. So again, that was again the same issue there itself. So every startup they were actually planning to sell it for a different, like different set of customers, and probably, for example, some were really focusing on high performance vehicles and somewhere little going with the there are different segments of electric vehicle startups trying to develop different kinds of vehicles. So that's where we couldn't really find a specific kind of market for the generic thing that we have actually developed.
No, but how did you? I mean, if you had to go back in time and define it for the OEM market, would you have
Yes.
redefined, or would you have defined your product a little differently, defined and designed?
Yes, absolutely. That so if you have to really go on that, so first thing is would be the battery system that we could have really focused on. Like for instance, the battery management system initially was developed on a very normal mode. I mean, like it's only accessible to lithium ion batteries. Now with the amount of research that we have done from the past 1 year, so the battery management system currently has an access to any kind of chemistry now. So it can actually go into any kind of chemistry. So yeah, so that's one thing we couldn't really achieve at that point of time, but that came up with a lot of research actually.
So, so those are some considerations. If you were to look at OEM, I mean standardization, making sure like trackability is there,
Yes.
understanding their overall environment into which your product is fitting in, like the batteries, like you mentioned.
Absolutely.
So, and then like also the value itself.
Correct.
On the value front, did you have any problems? I mean, did you pack enough value? Like if the battery issue was not there, would there have been better acceptability?
Absolutely. So what we were achieving today is very high when compared to the drive systems that typical OEMs are using. So as I told, the efficiency didn't change at all. The efficiency what we are achieving is 92% is quite high when compared to the other existing systems. So if we couldn't have really, if we really have gone with only, I mean, keeping up at the battery side, we could have only gone with the complete drive system. That would have been a real good solution. Yeah, so the only major thing that we didn't really consider was, I mean, which we did earlier was to develop the whole as a system, battery, motor, and the drive system as a complete unit. Now we could, with the proper research, we could have come that like individual systems are built and the proper communication protocols have been established in a different way. So yeah, we could create a lot of value with that drive system that we have developed actually.
So now flipping to the other option, right? This is the OEM option.
Yes.
Flipping to the other option, which is like your own branded, full integrated product, right? The full
Right.
two-wheeler in your case.
Yes.
So now, when you are working on the drivetrain, how easy is it to now upgrade that whole thinking to a full vehicle?
Yeah, so that's a good question again. So basically, what we try to do is, so with the major components of it is being already done, like typically the battery and the drive system. So other systems, what we have considered is what exactly, for example, if you are looking at our vehicles and all. So what we have done is majorly when you are selling it to even B2B or B2C, the other major considerations is especially for early stage startups and like the investment of which after sales is quite high. So what we have done is typically designed the whole system in such a way that like we have developed the whole frame and the other components very generically. And talking about like for example the other components such as like there are quite a few things that are monitored continuously and given a feedback to the user. So the rest of the frame and these were the typical were done very generically and could be like if I'm talking about if you have to service that models or after sales, that can be done very easily. I mean, like by a typical any typical roadside garages or something. So that was the consideration actually because we were using online models as a sales for the B2C. In the initial phase, we were going with B2B, but currently with the B2C, we are only using online models and few dealership things. So the major concept. So when we started when we started the design of other components, apart from the battery and the motor system, this was the main consideration. So how well we could get the users actually to use it, and how well we can actually keep them in loop with the service model. Sorry, even after the sales, especially with the service part and all. So that was a major design consideration. The rest of the frame and all, yeah, it was very generic and very simple.
No, the value itself. See, when it's a subsystem, the value proposition is a little different. You can say, look, we are the best powertrain or most power efficient or energy efficient or whatever, right? You can have some positioning for the subsystem. Now, for the full product, what was your positioning?
Yeah, so that was the thing. So what we have done is, I mean, with the full product, I would say one is we have started to again when this OEM thing happened initially, we have started to design in such a way that I mean design the whole thing and manufacturing it in India. So what we have done is the especially with the segment that we are operating currently, which is a low speed model. So what the major thought was initially India being a price conscious market, that is one major thing. One was the focus on price, and second thing is the whole system as it so whole system is well. So what we have developed is an intelligent system and which actually doesn't require a complete. Uh, I mean, really, it actually it has a predictive maintenance system with what it can do is it actually gives an user proper feedback on how the vehicle is. I mean, like especially the health of the vehicle or the complete other components of it. So what we are positioning it as right now is it's a very cost efficient solution for a low speed model, which is like close to 28,000 that we are selling it at. And the whole, I mean, like given the battery part or the charge, like if you're talking about the charging, we have achieved quite a good charging time of less than 1 hour, like close to 43 minutes. So talking about the other parameters such as I told about the intelligence system. So that was the major things that we are positioning it right now, especially with the whole, considering it as a whole product. That
So what is the
yes, please. Sorry.
no? So I was going to ask like, what is the it's a very crowded space, right? I mean, like so was the quick charging, was that the most compelling proposition that you had?
Not really the quick charging part. Quick charging is it's like there, but we are talking about the predictive maintenance system actually. So it actually indicates the user even before the real failure occurs, and it actually gives a proper feedback to the user on battery and motor, battery and the rest of the components too. So that actually made them like and about the efficient. I mean, like we could achieve good amount of. I mean, like the overall efficiency of the system. So these are the three factors that we are considering. One is the quick charging, second would be the predictive maintenance, and the overall like the battery, be it the range or overall efficiency that we are offering to the.
So that is one part of it, to understand what's the value in the product. Then how do you communicate this value? I mean, like it's a crowded space, lot of two wheelers in the market, lot of two wheelers from startups in the market.
Absolutely.
So how do you kind of communicate this value?
Uh, So especially, yeah, given that, like for example, if you're talking about yes, it's a EV space, especially in the two-wheeler market, it's becoming it's a very crowded space already, and there are a lot of people coming into the space, especially. So what we are actually trying to do, the major thing is to, for example, now, like especially communicating with the user is going with the, uh, as I told, giving like all this kind of good specs, especially with this at a very good price, I would say that is one major point. Like, and if you could see major, if you could see the major problem with the, for example, whatever the startups or whatever the people who are in the existing space, that one major challenge would be the overall life cycle of a battery. So we have given them, like for example, 2 years complete warranty on the battery, which was the complete tested on that, like which is a 30,000 kilometers of a complete warranty is given on the battery. So there are quite a few such, as I told. So communicating with user on a regular basis. For example, we have. I'll just brief you on a predictive maintenance part on a very small note. Like, for example, if any higher problems with the system is directly communicated to us, where we can remotely solve the problems on a like major. I mean, like because we have completely over-the-air updates. I mean, remotely accessing the battery and motor parts through the. I mean, remotely that was done. We have completely. We are communicating with the users through over-the-air updates, giving them feedback. I mean, like feedback with the battery, even with the usage. So we are actually trying to make sure that it's a complete solution that is being offered rather than it's like whatever we see in a regular market is like, especially with the charging time being high, that is one reason. Prices are like with a very low segment of 25 speed, you see that most of the vehicles are priced quite high. And talking about the after sales, like most of it, it's you see it as an online model, no proper outlets and all. But that's what we are doing too. But communication, proper communication with the users about the complete vehicle and mainly focusing on after sales is something that we are actually projecting ourselves in the B2C space, especially. In the B2B, we
And
are.
how's the uptake been? I mean, of the product.
Yes, yes. If so far actually in the initial phase we were actually going with B2B space. We were starting the B2C space like probably in February. So not much of things have been, not much of progress so far. But hopefully in the next coming days we are expecting it. Now we are
I
going.
mean, the lockdown also came at the wrong time.
Absolutely, it has a great effect on that actually. So we could make not much of progress on that.
No, so this is good. I mean, especially a consideration on when to go OEM and when to go full product.
Yes,
I think it's not an easy like way, especially because, like I said, one comes at the expense of the other. If you go OEM, you can't have your own product. If you go your own product, very hard to go OEM.
yes,
So now I think you gave some of the considerations very clearly. Now, before we wrap up,
yes.
uh, one growth hack. I know you yourself are a young startup, but from your experiences so far in the last 2 3 years, one growth hack that you would like to share from your experiences.
Yeah, definitely. So what I feel is like, rather than just, I mean, like, so the major thing is, rather than going fast, take it. Is what my experience has given us. I usually believe that getting a product into customer hands fast is real thing, but I see that it isn't all about the velocity or time to market. It's just about like how the, I mean, what I've observed, like especially with that, is the basic groundwork that needs to be done properly. So that's one thing that we missed out on the initial phase, which I completely recommend to the other founders as well.
No, no, absolutely. I think that's make a lot of sense. Like when you talk about time to market, understanding the market is the most important. If you know who has the need and who are you going to target, then you can build
Absolutely.
for that target and then make sure it is as fast as possible.
Correct.
So yeah, working towards a rapid time to market is very key. So I know
Correct.
that's a very relevant point. So Harsha, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us today in this Fire Up series. And all the best. And now that lockdown is lifting, hopefully your market channels will open up again. And all the best in your journey, Harsha.
Thank you, Ramesh. Thank you so much.